I'm one of the career educators here at, thank you for recording. Okay, so I'm one of the career educators here at the Division of Career Pathways. So CDS, or the Career Discovery Series, and I'll go ahead and share a little PowerPoint we have for us today. This is a series that we do in winter quarter, which we pick a couple of topics that students have been interested in throughout the year, and we bring in our UCI alumni and our employers and community members to discuss this particular event. Again, we have a couple more coming up after this. All right, so I just wanted to start off in thinking about social impact and giving you an idea of what we mean by that today. So when we think about social impact, just kind of a rough definition for you all. These sort of jobs, we tend to think about employers or organizations that are focused around a positive cause in helping society. So these are typically when our employees are using their strengths and skills to support a particular mission. So these are typically students are attracted to these careers if you're purpose-driven, if you enjoy helping out your community, either your national or local community, and you're trying to find maybe a meaning or fulfillment in your careers. This is probably a good space for you. Okay, all right, so we'll go ahead and keep going with our short little presentation here. So I just wanted to make all the students aware of a couple of other panels coming up for CDS. So I'll go ahead and pause here. If there's anyone that you're interested in, make sure you take a screenshot or take a note. All these events are on Handshake, so you can go ahead and look up the event, make sure you register, and you can also see some of the panelists that we have lined up for each of these events. So all on Handshake. And then last announcement, here are a few other events that are coming up later this week or early next week. So we have one for graduate students on Thursday, so tomorrow, virtual drop-ins on Friday, and then also a series we do for students who are graduating on Tuesday. This one particularly is going to be on the job search. Okay, so I will go ahead and stop sharing really quickly, and we will get to the bulk of our presentation, which is talking to our panelists. Okay, so thank you again. Thank you so much for being here and for being here to learn from, and we're going to hear from you today. We really appreciate your presence and volunteering to be here for our students. Alrighty, so enough from me. Let's go ahead and get to you all. So I would love if we could go around and just have you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your current position and what you do in your role. Okay, I will just go ahead and pass it off to the person next to me. So Elda, would you like to start?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Elda Rosales. My pronouns are she, her, ella, and I am a staff attorney at the UC Immigrant Legal Resources here at UC Irvine. I'm located in the Student Center on the 4th floor, and I provide free immigration services to students and their immediate family members that range from consultations to representation with USCIS and also representation in removal proceedings. It's really nice to be here. Thank you all for allowing me to be here in this space. Oh, I think you're muted. Should I popcorn someone?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll popcorn Maureen because I think you muted yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Maureen Carasiti, and I am the Director of Workforce Services at Easterseals, Southern California. I oversee our employment division, and we work with individuals that have disabilities and help them find career paths and jobs. I'm really excited to be here and share about our services and share about, the career transition into the type of work that we do here at Easterseals. Okay, how about Benjamin go next?
Thanks. Hi, everyone. My name is Benjamin Tran. I am the policy strategist with Asian Americans Advancing Justice Southern California. We are an API centered nonprofit civil rights organization. that's focused on uplifting the needs of the API community and other marginalized communities. My position specifically is on the policy team. So the way I kind of divvy up the work is that we have direct services that help with direct legal aid. And they're the ones who help to comply and to navigate through the law. The policy team, we're focused on taking that knowledge and enacting positive change through the law to make it easier and better for people to get the help they need. Yeah, great to be on the panel today. I'm actually a UCI alumni from 2018, graduated with political science back then, and I'll pass it on to Lupita.
Thank you, Benjamin. So hi, folks. My name's Lupita Martinez. I am the Regional Policy Advocate for CHIRLA here in the LA region. So our department is composed of a federal team, state team, and regional in the San Bernardino area, also closer to the border. And then there's me here in the LA region. So really a lot of the policy work that I work on is different areas that intersect and affect our immigrant and undocumented community in the region of LA. And I'm sure we'll tap into more of that later on, but happy to be here with you all.
Thank you. Again, we're really happy for you all to be here. As you can see, we have a very interesting mix of different job positions and organizations. So this will be a really interesting panel. So kind of our first question, after getting to know a little bit more about your jobs, we're curious how you got there, especially as in the audience as UCI students thinking about our next step after graduation. So why don't we just think about that second question? What was your career path like, and how did you end up doing what you're doing now? I can pick on a different person to start this time. I don't know. Maureen, would you like to go first?
So it's interesting because my career path was somewhat of an accident. I was in school, my undergraduate degree is in education, and at the time I was working for an organization that was supporting people with disabilities. And while I was in my undergrad work, I decided to minor in special education. So as I graduated, I had this dual major for elementary education and special education, and started working and being in the schools. And I realized that I was more connected with some of the adults that I was serving, because I was working in a residential program that was serving adults with disabilities. And while I felt a little bit lost with the children for some reason, and I realized that my skills and my assets were more geared towards working with adults. And so I began serving people in a residential component in New York. I'm actually bi-coastal. I was born in California but raised in New York, and started working with individuals that were living in state institutions, and the state institutions were being depopulated and people were moving into community homes. And then from there migrated west and got involved in nonprofits here in San Diego. And I realized that, my assets and my strengths, and really what I wanted for my career, was to have a purpose in terms of service. And I've been able to do that through the various positions that I've had. And that has landed me at Easterseals, Southern California, where I lead the team that is finding employment for people with disabilities. I have to say that the career path, and in that time frame, I actually went back to get my graduate degree in nonprofit leadership at University of San Diego, and again, just really always connected with the nonprofit organization and the ability to serve others and make a difference in people's lives. So that's kind of how I ended up here. It was it was kind of by accident, but it's been my lifelong work. I've been in the field for about 42 years this year. So yeah.
We'll go ahead and popcorn it to whoever
Okay.
is next. So yeah.
I can go ahead and go next. Just to kind of piggy off of that, mine also was by accident. So I graduated in 2018 from UC Irvine under the social ecology school. Double majored in criminology, law and society, and psychology and social behavior. My last year at UC Irvine, I participated in the UCDC program, and I had the career goal to be part of law enforcement, specifically a profiler for the FBI. And then all of that changed once I participated in the UCDC program. I interned for Congresswoman Linda Sanchez. And then from there, I moved on to a nonprofit organization where I got exposed to building government power within like Latino communities. And from there, I particularly explored policy around education for undocumented students. So that's really what led to now be part of CHIRLA and work in the policy team. Because through there, I wanted to make a policy impact. And I knew that. So then I took all the steps that I needed, that I thought that I needed to take, because sometimes there's no clear pathway to get to where you want to be. So I created like my own path. From there, I worked with USC. I was a college advisor and was placed at a high school that had a Dream Resource Center for undocumented students. So from there, I was like, okay, I want to work more closely with our undocumented students. And that's when I applied to CHIRLA, which it stands for Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights, and we focus on advocating and pushing for not only policies and resources for our undocumented community at the regional, state level, but also federal level. Our Northern Star is for immigration reform. And from there was an opening in our policy department, and I applied, and they took a chance because my only background was education policy. And right now my buckets of work expand way beyond education, such as homelessness, housing, digital equity, language access. So it's a learning curve, but I'm excited to be doing the work. So that's a little bit about just my path to getting where I am now. And I'll popcorn it over to Benjamin.
Thanks, Lupita. So I think my pathway to my current position, so I studied political science when I was at UCI, and that was really integral in helping to teach me like the theory behind politics and governance, right? And also, what does good policy in theory look like? But I think a lot of the things that led me to my current career is a lot of the like internship opportunities and other chances I've gotten to explore, both on the end of working inside the government and working outside of it. So I've had an opportunity to intern in assembly members' offices, elected officials. I worked for Assembly Member Phil Ting as his Assembly Fellow. And if anyone wants to hear more about the Capital Fellows Program, I was a participant as a part of it. And then, during my time at UCDC, I was interning with another advocacy organization there. And so I think kind of getting both ends of that experience ended up helping me kind of figure out, at least in the moment, where is it that I wanted to do advocacy work and how. Because I think there are benefits and there's a lot to learn from either side, working on the governance end or working within community-based advocacy organizations. So after working, I spent about 3 years working in Sacramento after graduating from UC Irvine, working in the state capitol. I decided after that time, I was like, I think I think I want to be on the side of like working within advocacy organizations, being a little more closer, get connected to the community and those kind of policy efforts. And Elda, do you want to take it over from here?
Yeah, so my career path is it's kind of like common for people who want to be an attorney. I knew that I wanted to be an attorney and I kind of stuck to that, but the way that I got into the work that I do now, working in partnership with the Dream Center, focusing on undocumented students, was kind of an interesting route. So I also graduated from UC Irvine, but in 2014. So it's been a bit for me. I was a transfer student. So when I transferred in, I kind of was navigating being at a UC, transferring, all of that process. And I took the LSAT my last year, my senior year, but I was also taking a lot of units. So I wasn't happy with that and I decided to take it again. So for anybody who's like wants to be an attorney and is worrying about that, I took it twice. I am an attorney and I think I'm pretty successful. I'm happy with my job. So that was unconventional a little bit. Then I went to law school and I was actually working at a private firm. My goal was to be an immigration attorney, given coming from a mixed status family. I have the privilege of being a US citizen, however, people in my family weren't. So I always knew that this work was something that I wanted to do. Then with working with that private firm, it closed and my whole plan came shattering down. And I actually got put into connection with Carasiti, which is a Central American Resource Center in Los Angeles. And I was able to work there as a staff attorney doing similar type of work, but on the CSU level and for community colleges. So I was serving students in partnership with their Dream Centers, providing immigration access for students and their families. I became a supervising attorney for a bit, almost about a year. And then I decided that I really missed being on the ground, working with students, learning about them, informing them, giving them agency over their lives. This opportunity presented itself and I was like, wow, UC Irvine doing this work in my community that I came from. I just felt like it was for me. And it's a recent change. I started here in September and it's been really awesome. I'm really excited to be here on the ground working with students and also seeing that there's a Dream Center here. When I was a student, there wasn't a Dream Center. I really would have liked having a Dream Center here. Yeah, so that's a little bit about my pathways and kind of like why I'm here and just really passionate about the work that I do.
Thank you all for sharing. I mean, this is a great example of everyone has very different career paths and different interests and things that they've been involved in. So really impressive to hear all the work that you all have done and how you've ended up in your positions. Now, I know some people mentioned some really interesting programs that I just wanted to give some time in case anyone wanted to elaborate what they meant. I heard UCDC, College Corps, Capital Fellows, different types of internships. So if anyone wanted to elaborate on what those are, how to get involved with them, feel free to use a second.
Yeah, I'm happy to touch on, just because I also, again, really endorse the UCDC program and the Capital Fellows program. I can touch on those real quick. So the UCDC, to my understanding, is you can take a quarter to go and intern in DC. The UCs have an actual like facility that you stay in DC. And you are both taking, I think still, if you're going during like the spring and winter quarters, you can still take classes and the same time interning full time. And then during the summertime, I think it's optional for you to take classes and go and intern there. So I went during the summer of 2017. So I wasn't taking classes, but I was interning there full time out of the UC like facility in Washington DC. Yeah, I think you sign up through I'm assuming through the career center. And then the Capital Fellows program is a program that's for graduating, like for graduated college students. You basically end up applying to 4 distinct programs, either the Assembly, the Senate, the Executive or the Judiciary branch of the California government. And you get placed after going through the interview process, you'll be placed in an elected official's office, or if you're doing the judiciary or the department, you get placed with a department in the executive branch or at a certain courthouse with the judiciary. So I did the assembly program, and I was placed with Assembly Member Phil Ting. So that was the work that I did in the state capitol for an elected official. You are basically like an elected official staffer. So you help to like create policies, represent the elected official.
Very cool. Thank you for sharing. And I always say, I think there's a UCDC info session, something going on in a different room in our office right now. So we'll have to record this and send it to all those students as well. This is a great example of student involvement and really taking that to the next level. So thank you for sharing. Okay, so just kind of another question that we'd like to pose to you. So when we're working with students here at the Division of Career Pathway, we like to think about like, what can students be involved in now? How can they grow their skills so that they're ready for after graduation? So I was wondering if you can elaborate maybe on a skill that you worked on in college, or even a campus group that you were a part of that you would recommend. But what can they be doing now that you think would be a good thing to work on as a college student to prepare for your particular career path?
I'll start.
Okay, thank you.
If you don't mind. So in the work that I do, there's advocacy never ends. You know, and as I started in the career, you know, I began working with individuals that needed advocacy and that didn't have strong advocates in their corner, because you know, they were in institutions and many of them were separated from families. And so I found that that skill of advocacy, you know, there's not like, there actually was an advocacy class, you know, how to organize for advocacy, how to develop grassroots efforts and such. And I think that advocacy is probably the skill that I worked on most in my undergraduate work. And that came through in a lot of different forms. It came through the work that I was doing while I was going to school. It came when we were doing our internships and such. There were opportunities for advocacy in those settings. And I think that skill in the services that we provide is critical. Because and the desire to always be better in the work that we do. You know, good enough is really never good enough, because if you say you're great and you say you're good enough, then you're probably not providing the best service to the people that you support. So you should always be encouraging yourself to be better, encouraging the people that you work with to be better, advocating for the people that you support, and advocating for your team to go above and beyond. And that just never ends. So I would have to say that advocacy is probably the most critical skill in the work that we do here at Easterseals. Okay, I will pass on to Benjamin.
Yeah, I think one of the most important skills I will say from transitioning from college into this field of work is understanding how to translate really complex concepts and making sure that people, like your average, normal, everyday person, can understand it. I think a great example is when I first got into working in the state capitol, and I was asked to do like a summary of a bill, and I ended up like summarizing it within a page, and my legislative director like handed it back to me and was like, no, like you need to do this summary in like 2 sentences. And that was for me like transitioning from like college, which was like about writing long 30-page, you know, essays, to like, no, you have like 2 minutes to tell your elected official, you know, why this matters. So you better be able to say it really succinctly. And that's a very important skill that like I didn't really develop until I got into this field of work. And then even here on the policy end of advocating from outside the government, it's important to make sure that that you can talk about all the complex things that go into supporting a community in a really succinct, again, and clear way. Because it's one thing to be able to say everything's complicated, interconnected, and all the solutions are really, really elaborate. And then everyone will look at you and be like, okay, so what are you trying to say at the end of the day? And so that means being able to maintain both the nuance of something, but at the same time, messaging it in a very simple and easy way. Elda, do you want to take it from here?
Yeah. Very, very good points. Definitely the advocacy is a big part of what I do. Breaking down information, I do that all the time for students. So those are two really good that I'm trying to compete with. But I think for me, it's active listening. In my role as an attorney, it's a lot of sitting down and taking information from people. And on the legal side, it's every part of it matters, but on the human level, the type of service that I want to give is holistic. So if a student is saying, I'm suffering from food insecurity, or I'm currently unhoused, really listening to that and finding solutions for them. And that's where that advocacy piece comes in, is connecting them with counseling here on campus or with the pantry here on campus. Really, really active listening and giving people agency over their lives are the two things that I think are things that we can start working on as undergrads. Listening to people, if there's a problem, maybe helping find solutions to those things if you want to do the type of work that I'm doing. But those two were things that I do every single day. I'm still not great. I'm not perfect at them, but it's something that it's a continual growth. So yeah, those were my two. And I think the other panelist, Lupita, I don't see her on here.
I think so, yes. So Lupita, I think she was pulled into a meeting, so she had to jump off. So it might just be us. She might jump back in. But thank you for sharing. So I'm seeing some overlap too, and really some similar thoughts, similar skills that we share across the board, active listening, advocacy, and thinking for our students out there, thinking of ways that you can build that up during your UCI experience. Mentioned a couple of different centers that could be a good place to get started with those skills. All right, so I'd like to pivot a little bit. So I know we've asked a lot of questions about your roles and your jobs. I would also like to ask some things about your organization, because I think that's a big reason for the work that we do in terms of social impact, working in nonprofits or working in the government, and thinking about the impact we're having as a group, as an organization. So maybe we can just elaborate on what is your organization like? What is it like to work there? What's a little bit of the company culture? How would you describe working in your organization? Elda, do you want to go first? We'll give Maureen a break from going first.
I was going to volunteer. So the UC Immigrant Legal Services has been something that's been created since 2014. So it's been around for a bit. We service 9 UC campuses, and there is an office with an attorney at each of the UC campuses except Berkeley. The center is comprised of an attorney. Some centers have a paralegal or a legal assistant, depending on campus need. So that's the model that we function off of, and we provide services, like I said, to students and their families. These can range from just a consultation to actually providing services like a DACA renewal or applying for citizenship or a green card. Also can be situations where maybe someone is in deportation proceedings. I would be able to represent them, and everything is free of cost. So that's a really, really awesome thing that we provide. We also do a lot of advocacy. Recently, we have been trying to get involved in advocacy on the Southern California and hopefully national level, but that's a little bit of that piece. And we work in unison with the Dream Centers on the campus. So I am actually directly across from the Dream Center here at UC Irvine, and we work together to make sure that we fulfill student needs, that we're aware of campus climate and culture, and just any kind of access issues that we're working together to provide. And that's pretty much every center. Each one is a little bit unique just depending on the campus, but each of them function in a similar way. And I'm going to go ahead and share our website in the chat if anybody's curious about it. And then I'll popcorn Benjamin.
Yeah, great idea to share our websites. So Advancing Justice Southern California, we are a direct service and advocacy organization. So we have 2 offices, or 3 technically. Our main headquarters is based here in Los Angeles. We have one in Orange County and Anaheim, and then we have our Sacramento office. So we have a big chunk of our staff dedicated to direct services, and that's similar to how Elda's doing it. We have staff attorneys that assist people with immigration, domestic violence, restraining orders, or a couple to list a few examples. So for example, like under immigration would be like naturalization, DACA, and filling out those forms. And we do legal representation when it comes to like going to immigration court. We are starting to get into deportation defense work as well. So the policy team, which is the one I'm on, we are the ones who are helping to change the laws. And so I would think I would try to help people think about it like the people who are based here in LA and in Orange County as policy advocates and part of the policy team, we're the ones focused on doing the research, but also making sure that all the policy priorities we push in Sacramento on the state level or on the national level are grounded in a connection to the community that we claim to represent, but also that the policies we pitch are also just like that they're actually going to help people and have an actual positive effect.
Okay,
Sorry,
my
Maureen.
turn, I guess, right? Okay, so Easterseals Southern California has been providing services for over 100 years. We're part of you may have heard of the National Easterseals affiliate. We are an affiliate of the National Easterseals. And I think that Easterseals Southern California is one of the largest affiliates. Our mission is to support individuals to full access and inclusion and really leading the way through life-changing community services. Our services that we provide, they're full life. We do have early childhood intervention. We have an autism program. We do work with adults. We work with aging adults. We work with people in residential. We do outreach and engagement. We serve veterans. We do employment. Basically, it's a full-rounded organization that provides, and the ultimate goal is to provide opportunities for the people that we support and make their lives better, make their lives full of quality. So there is just a wonderful, I have to say, and I've worked for a number of organizations, and I think what I like best about Easterseals Southern California is that there is a commitment to the people that we support, and it's not just we have this beautiful mission and we kind of do it some of the time. We do it all of the time, and I think that in itself is just it's just incredible. And from the top to the staff that are providing services, boots on the ground, the philosophy is really about the people that we support and enhancing their lives through community access and through employment and through, just services that make their lives better lives.
Oh, one more thing I wanted to mention. Sorry, Maureen, if you were wrapped up.
No, I'm wrapped up. Thanks.
Yeah, so we also have a portion of our team that's dedicated to doing programming. And that ends up being a little more flexible in terms of kind of events they put on. So for example, like in response to the recent Monterey Park shootings, Advancing Justice Southern California was the one that helped to set up the Victims Fund. And we're helping to administer those funds to the rest of the victims' families.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for mentioning that, Benjamin. I'm really glad that we all mentioned some other parts of our organizations besides just policy or the attorneys, the staff attorneys, the other people that work in your organization. Takes for those students that are listening that are like, maybe I'm not interested in policy or law, there is a lot of different opportunities within nonprofits or these sort of organizations. So even if you're on the finance side or the marketing or things like that. So something to learn and a place for everyone really in these organizations. Now, Maureen, I'm going to pick on you for a minute, if that's okay.
Okay.
Since it sounds like you've worked at a lot of different organizations in your career in different places, I'm curious what you look for when what you look for in this organization, how that compares in terms of culture at other nonprofits, or just a little bit more about your experience.
Great.
Yeah.
Personally, I look for core values. There are wonderful nonprofits out there, a lot of them, and then there are some nonprofits that make a bad name for nonprofits. I believe that Easterseals, like I said, I think that having the opportunity to work with a leadership team that is challenging, challenging us to be better, challenging just through advocacy. We're involved in legislation. We are involved in services, research on services, to have evidence-based practice. And I think that the organization itself and why I have stayed here is because of that, because we are constantly growing and becoming better at what we do. And to me, that's important. I have to align. You could pay me all the money in the world, and if I don't align with how the services are being provided, or if I feel like they could be better and we're not doing that, I'm not going to be happy. So for me, it's really a core value based decision to stay with this organization because I feel it aligns with my core values and ethics.
Thank you for sharing. I think that's a big part of this is thinking about our own values and our priorities and how that aligns with the other companies and missions and that sort of thing. So well put. So I will say for students, if you have questions for our panelists, please start writing things in the chat, and we'll transition to that very quickly. So go ahead and let us know what sort of things you have. Elda, did you want to make a comment?
Yeah, I actually wanted to piggyback a little bit off of Maureen. Similar experience is also finding balance with legal work or advocacy work. It's also taking care of mental health because you are dealing with outside problems. It is a lot of information that you're taking on and experiences that you're taking on. Sometimes I go home and I feel terrible and I want to cry. So just a organization or an employer that's also cares about the community that you're serving, but also the employees themselves, because there is, times where we have to care for ourselves also. So finding that balance is also a big piece, a part of it being in line with the mission. I love immigration, but sometimes I have to close the door or take a mental health day just because the work that you do is really heavy.
Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, definitely self-care and thinking about wellness and how these organizations take care of you all, of their employees. Does anyone want to piggyback on that comment, just in case, ways that they practice self-care or just wellness when you're in your positions or when there's challenging days? If not, that's okay.
Actually, I think that's wonderful that you mentioned that, Elda, because I think a lot of times people are afraid to mention that. They're afraid to say, I'm having a tough day. I know that at our organization, the priority, you're not going to be able to provide a quality service if you aren't feeling in a good space. So our organization has a really robust employee assistance program. and the employees have input on policies and procedures and things like that that make you feel like you're more a part of the organization, not just a cog in the wheel, but that you are actually part of the efficiency of the organization. But self-care is critical, especially in the work that we do, because there is a high potential for burnout, and the work that we do is challenging. But on the other hand, it's so rewarding. I always say, I've received so much more than I've ever given in the work that we do here at Easterseals. So anyway.
I think one thing to add on to that is definitely making sure that in pursuing this work and pursuing this line, I think everyone is touching on the fact that it is really easy to give so much of yourself to this job, especially because, I think all of us have really personal reasons for why we are inspired to do this work. And then I think realizing and acknowledging that it is important to have a life outside of the work, and to have things that bring you joy outside of that. So I think I want to caveat and warn people about this, because the lifespan of a staffer in Sacramento and in DC, working in the building and working with elected officials, is typically anywhere between 2 to 2.5 years. And that's just a really quick turnover, because I've seen so many young people around my age really aspiring to try and make great change and get burnt out so quickly, because you can give yourself so much of your time and energy to that cause. Yeah, and just finding other things to do, right? Having hobbies outside of the work, right? I do martial arts, and that to me is really, really great to have that kind of creative avenue. And other, and whatever your own creative outlets are, I think really encourage people to find that.
Thank you. All good points, really focusing on our wellness and finding, like Benjamin said, other outlets besides work, even though we want to like our work and we want to be there. So thank you for sharing that also. We're getting to the end of my prepared questions, and then we'll transition to some Q&A and breakout rooms at the very end. So students, again, let me know what sort of questions you have. I have one more prepared question, and then we'll get to any of those. So please go ahead and put anything in the chat that you're curious about. It could be for the whole panel or for one of our panelists here, and that's okay. All right, so last round for all of you. So my final question that I always like to ask at the end of a panel is just thinking about if you have one last tip, one last suggestion for our students who might be listening today. Kind of a speed round, something quick that you feel like maybe you haven't gotten to mention today that you want to mention. So whoever wants to go first, feel free to jump in.
I'll go first. Seems to be my theme. I think about when I was in school, and which is eons ago, very long time ago. But I think that if I could do it over again, the one thing that I would do differently is I would take advantage of what they have to offer in school, in terms of the activities, in terms of the experiences. I mean, if you're going to go into social services or anything in, a social impact career, it's always good to have experience before you graduate. It gives you a nudge to being employed, right? If you have that experience. And I just for example, I have a niece that she went to school and she did an internship. She majored in social work, and she did an internship in social work, but she wanted to get out and she wanted to serve individuals with challenging adolescent challenges. And And she couldn't get a job at first because she didn't have any relevant experience to that particular population. You know, her internship wasn't with that population. So if you know what population you are interested in working with, or even if you don't know, go volunteer. Go try some, you know, go try and work in some different settings, because you're really going to discover your niche. I think there's a lot of people that come into the social impact careers and, like, you know, are just here by, you know, they're not growing up like, I'm going to go and do this. They land there because they experience it at some point, and it jives with who they are, and it sticks. So if you can kind of dance during when you have the opportunity to dance, right? Like when you're in school, and I know that it's busy. I know that there's, you're taking tests and you're writing term papers, and you know, you might be balancing a part-time job on top of that, or even a full-time job. But when you have the opportunity to get out and experience different populations, that's going to give you a nudge to get hired, because you're going to have relevant experience with that particular group of people that you're interested in serving. Okay, that's my little nugget for you.
On that same vein, mine was, don't be afraid to take a chance. Those internships or externships that maybe you're like, I don't really know, I'm not really interested, or if there's any fear, is just do it. Jump and do it. Like, this is the time to learn and make mistakes and really like navigate. I want this, I don't want this. When I was an undergrad, there was an opportunity to be like a research assistant. I was really, really scared to do it, but I ended up doing it, and I was able to meet Justice Sotomayor at UCI Law School when she came to speak. So that was an opportunity that changed my life, because she was like an idol to me. So that's my advice: is don't be afraid, take the chance, and I promise you won't regret it.
Yeah, I think my advice is similar in, you know, take time and the chance to try a lot of places and different things when it comes to doing advocacy. And if that's something you really want your career to be centered around, then figuring out where do you want to do your advocacy, right? Do you want to do it on the direct services end? Do you want it to be on the policy end? And seeing, you know, which end really fits you. Because I think people will experience bureaucracy wherever you go. It's about understanding, you know, what type of bureaucracy you are best at navigating and in a lot of ways can deal with. And also, like, I think it's also really important for me to say, like, as someone who is in a social impact career, that, like, if your goal is also to make change, it doesn't necessarily have to be in your 9-to-5 job, right? I have plenty of friends who work corporate jobs and take their time outside of that to be involved in their community and to be making social change. But I think I see it as almost like, I really enjoy cooking. I don't know if I ever want to monetize making cooking my means of living. But for me, like, both doing social impact work allows me to make a living, but also like is a work I find really fulfilling.
Great, I think that's a great way to end and wrap that up as well. So thank you all for those last words of wisdom for our students. All good tips, like getting involved, not being afraid to try things, all good things. All right, so this concludes this part of our panel. So thank you again to all of our panelists. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording this. Okay, let's see.